Hey everyone, it's Jack, and just a couple videos ago, I talked about Aura Mayari's win in the Granny Girl Group Challenge. This is one of my least favorite episodes of Drag Race, especially coming from a pretty great season, and I described Aura Mayari's win as a rage bait moment or win from Drag Race. Rage bait is definitely a hot button term right now, with everyone using it left and right, because on the internet nowadays, you never really know if someone is just that stupid, or they're actually playing up on it and trying to get you to interact and comment. Rage bait in the Drag Race sense, of course, is a little different. The show's not stupid, but they definitely are doing some things to make sure that people interact. Aura Mayari's win, I think, is a great example. She did great in the challenge and had one of the best runways. Sasha Colby also had an incredible performance and runway, but Sasha was given more in the storyline and behind the scenes. The Metalgate debate was gravitated mostly around her, with Aura playing more of a side part, and they keep giving other people confessionals about her, talking about how crazy it is that she's doing all these things outside of her comfort zone.
I'm cracking this neck, thank God for Medicare!
Damn, that's coming out of Sasha Colby?
The entire episode, she was continuing to surprise and impress people and served as a major player of the central conflict, but then they gave the win to Aura. Drag Race doesn't always rage bait to get people to talk about things, sometimes they just flub storytelling or have some really bad judging. And the hard part is figuring out what is actually happening in each of these moments that we find frustrating. Aura Mayari's win here, I think, was a deliberate attempt to try and stir up conversation, because we knew that there were pieces there to make it a really satisfying win. Aura was struggling with the loss of her parent, and she explained that a little in the episode, but it was far from the central focus only really being talked about at the end. It was a great beat for her, but when so much of the episode is focused on other things, it causes her win to look a lot more out of place. A challenge win that a lot of people could consider rage bait, but I think was actually just sloppy judging, would be Jujubee's room design win on All Stars 5. This was the weird room design challenge that they did, where they worked in groups and the judges deemed that Blair and Mayhem had the best room, but only called them safe and then said that Jujubee was the winner of the challenge because she was the funniest. The judging is really confusing because were they actually getting judged on their performance or like more so the room? It really was not consistent, but they were trying to overshadow all that confusion with the fact that Jujubee got her first win in 3 seasons. That was supposed to be the big moment of the episode, and they for sure played it up, and it was good to see because everyone loves Jujubee. The execution was just flat out bad, and it kind of got people talking, but I don't think they were trying to get people talking in that way. If anything though, I think it inspired them to do something similar on All Stars 6, with more of the whiplash in mind that might get people talking. The Pink Table Talk had the exact same win format, with Ginger Minj winning it. One group was told that they were the best, they were all called safe, and then they turned to Ginger and said, "You win the challenge." It's just such a weird way of doing things. I understand that they have to only have one winner because of the assassin twist, but for them to say that this was the best group, meaning they all had the most consistently best performances, but then to turn to someone else and say that you were the best of your group, but the other people might be in the bottom, it didn't work the first time, so it was really shocking to see them do it again, especially with someone like Ginger Minj, who just kind of gets people going in general. I think they saw how poorly received the last win was in this type of format, while at the same time it got a lot of people talking, so I think they wanted to capitalize off of that. So the next season they did it again on an episode that was already kind of uncomfortable for a bunch of different reasons. The Pink Table Talk kind of being a challenge that forced them to open up whether they wanted to or not. Jen and Scarlett both being in the bottom because they weren't really being their authentic selves, basically implying that they weren't opening up in a way that was good for TV. And then Scarlet Envy, one of the most hyped queens going in, was eliminated in this episode. Weird judging with an out of left field winner, uncomfortable challenge, and then a fan favorite going home. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a production hand here to keep people talking about Drag Race. Howdy partners, I wanted to give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, Heyday. And stay tuned to hear more about an exciting giveaway. Heyday is a low stakes, high fun farming game where you can customize your farm in just the way you like. The gameplay is simple and relaxing, where your crops never die and you can play the game at your own pace. I like that I can put the game down and not worry about missing something, because anytime I log on, there's always something to collect or expansions to make. Farming games just have a certain je ne sais quoi to them for me. Heyday scratches like an itch in my brain anytime I log on and collect things and level up. I just love being able to farm new crops, take care of the silly little animals, and make new homemade goods for neighbors. And you can quickly see how joining communities in the game can benefit you. My farm name is Fed Coop because JackFed, you get it. If you're interested and want to download, I have the QR code up in the corner, or you could click the link in the description to start the download. When you download using my QR code or link, reply under the pinned comment with your farm name and I'll pick a random winner to give a $50 Supercell gift card. The giveaway is run by myself and starts the day that this video was uploaded, so that would be November 14th, and the winner will be contacted over DM on December 15th, 2025. This is eligible to people 18 years or older from the US, UK, Canada, or Australia. No purchase necessary to enter. I can't wait to see y'all's farms. Thank you so much to Heyday, and now let's get back to the video. Did you buy my southern accent there? Another win that I think is one of the most classic examples of rage bait would be George's win in the design challenge on season 14. I've been whacking season 14 ranting a lot as of recent because I do think I've been seeing a lot more of its problems, even though I do really enjoy the season. One of its other big issues is the fact that they repeat the same storyline like 3 times with Lady Camden, Deja, and Daya. They were all super close to a win in one week, and then they got the win the week after. The first of the 3 to get this storyline was Lady Camden, and it started in this episode. The Glamazon Prime design challenge in concept I think is really fun. It's basically drag on a dime, but they have to open these boxes and make an outfit out of unconventional materials. There were a lot of really cool looks this episode, like Angeria or Willow's or Lady Camden's, who was able to make this fairy look out of tulle fabric and a lot of scraps. It came together very nicely, and I think up to that point production was really underestimating her. And I think they were still doing that by the end of this episode, because instead of her winning the challenge, it went to not Angeria, not Willow, but Georges for this look. Listening to what the judges have to say about it, yeah, it's a fine looking look. Simple, but executed decently well, it's cute. But years later, I still can't justify how it stacks up against the rest of the looks this episode. This felt like the first major sign that they were trying to do some controversial wins here and there as a way to stir up conversation and get people upset. And I think they succeeded really hard because the fans were so upset at this time. It was one of the craziest times on Twitter. This look happened, UK vs. the World season 1 was not far behind it. Every day it felt like something insane was happening and no one knew what to do about it. Side note, this was also the episode where Willow was struggling to open up the boxes because of her condition, and instead of trying to help her, they just filmed her struggling, and it was really uncomfortable for everyone involved. I think they wanted to frame it as her overcoming adversity, but the thing is, they were creating it themselves. I don't think this moment was supposed to be rage bait, but it definitely got me frustrated and a lot of other people. We can talk about 2 moments from season 17 next. One I've discussed at length already, and the other I kind of brushed over because it was at the end of the season and there was a lot of other things to talk about. The one that I've talked about a lot is Lexi's Snatch Game critiques, because I feel like they knew that fans were going to get upset over this. Lexi's performance in some ways was entertaining, and she was in sort of the top but also the bottom. It was like this weird limbo position that we don't really know where she was. She herself and the wiki consider herself in the top, which I don't know if I entirely agree with, but I'm also just kind of confused because Drag Race judging for the most part is pretty black and white, whether you know you're in the top or the bottom. And this felt like one of the few times where someone was somehow in between. Like it was so bad that they had to acknowledge it, but she still wasn't put in the bottom for it, especially since the moment retroactively feels worse with Cynthia getting basically the same critiques that she did, but was actually put into the bottom. What's really frustrating is that this entire season, it felt like Lexi was narrowly avoiding the bottom, whether it was because of her performances barely being that good or maybe production. But we saw in episode 2 that Lexi could lip sync super well, so the fact that she was never put into the bottom, it's strange because we know that she could hold her own, but they were like protecting her for some reason. Which brings me to the next moment, the downfall of Susie Toot, or demonic Betty Bop, as you know, some politicians have been calling her. If they wanted to properly finish off the storyline, Lexi could have been in the bottom next to Susie here. Lexi had a pretty big one-sided beef with Susie, and if she wanted to overcome this and beat her in a lip sync, it could have happened. Instead, Sam Star was put into the bottom with Susie, and Susie was put into the bottom for a lot of random reasons. I almost get what they were saying with the critiques to Susie in some ways. She got a little too cerebral going back to episode 1 with her makeup and her style, and I don't think that's what the judges super wanted, but at the same time, the way they were critiquing it, it felt like they didn't really see her for the past 14 weeks or whatever. They said that she ventured out into various different makeup styles, but it never really left Susie Toot, and it's such a strange critique to make because she was changing up her makeup, but she still has her face. The entire season, it felt like they were on the wavelength of Susie and understood what she was doing, up until this last moment when they said they didn't get it, which I just don't really buy. I could see Susie winning season 17 just as much as Anya because they were 2 of the biggest characters, but I think Susie falls into the category of some of the queens that we see get eliminated right before the finale. It was queens who had a good chance of the crown, but were eliminated right before the finale because it just wasn't their time, but because their elimination happens right at the end, people get really upset, and it gets people talking about the show and the finale that's about to happen. Or in the more modern case, talk about the Lollapalooza that happened the next week, and guess who won? Susie Toot did. I would venture to say these types of queen eliminations are the first form of Drag Race rage bait in a way. I think of queens like Bendela Creme, Katya, Alyssa Edwards on All Stars 2, Miss Cracker on season 10, Vanjie on season 11. All these queens presented as fan favorites who had varying levels of chances at the crown. They all went shortly before the finale in 5th place specifically. They serve as a blow to the audience who expected or wanted them to be there, and sometimes it also creates an easier path for like the true frontrunner to win the season. I'd say a majority of the time, the judging that gets one of these queens to be put in the bottom, it makes sense. Susie Toot, I think, is one of the most egregious examples of them just deciding not to really understand what she was going for, while other queens who finished in 5th with the expectation of them making it to the finale, their abrupt eliminations made a little more sense for the performance that happened that week. It shocks the audience and gets people talking about the show up until the finale, and it also reminds them that the competition is very much still on. I talk about them a lot on this channel, but I think think the All-Stars twists are great examples of rage bait depending on which one you're talking about. Anything introduced at the beginning of the season with the queens having the knowledge of it, that's fine, that's not rage bait, it's just like the new format that they're doing. Things like the 3-star twist, the double diamond twist, the jury, things that just kind of jump on the queens, you can immediately flag that as rage bait, because while maybe it does benefit someone in the competition, the showrunners have knowledge that the fans don't like this all the way back to the jury in season 3. And yet every season now, it feels like the format switches up last minute just to make something crazy happen. Because there's no doubt in my mind that it spikes the viewership and people just continue to talk about the show, whether it's good or bad. While it wasn't on Twitter or in the fandom at the time, I know the jury in All-Stars 3 sparked the most controversy out of any twist they've ever done. And in some ways, I feel like they're still chasing that high and trying to toe the line between really controversial last minute change and good entertaining finale, and they really still haven't done that yet. It just feels cheap, especially year after year of a new twist coming. It's not fresh in a way where it's exciting or keeps us on our toes, we just kind of have this impending doom. Some BS is going to come our way and it's going to upset us, but unfortunately that's kind of exactly what they want because it keeps us talking. I'm literally doing it right now, I've fallen into their trap. Finally, I want to talk about some queens on the show that are lightning rods for rage bait in some ways, even though they didn't really sign up for that role. The two queens that stick out the most in this way are Jan on season 12 and Denali on season 13. And I'm almost certain that Denali was a product of how Jan was received on the previous season. Jan on season 12 knew exactly what she wanted to do going into the show, and she showcased all of her talents really well. Each week she had a good knowledge of what they wanted to see, and she would give a good performance, a safe performance if you will. Jan was safe most of the time, and it was built into her storyline of her getting upset over it, and a lot of the fans were there to back her up for many different reasons, thinking she deserved better, especially in the light of one of the queens being disqualified and her getting a lot of the top spots that could have also gone to Jan. It all led up to the Rusical, where Jan had a standout performance, one of the best of the episode, and everyone in the room was expecting Jan to take the win, and then it went to Gigi Good. This moment created the Jan face crack that I think was extremely monumental for a lot of production. You can tell that they loved this moment and it paid off the exact way that they wanted it to. Jan, full of emotions, next week tries even harder and ends up going home because of it. And fans were extremely upset at this, saying that she was completely robbed in so many different ways. But it became one of the most memorable moments in a long time from the show, and they got both fans frustrated and Jan herself frustrated, making that face crack. One season later, they were practically doing the same thing to Denali basically every episode up until her elimination. She lost the first lip sync in the pork chop episode, she won that next week, but then after that she was safe, and never really got to be acknowledged. The frustrations were going, but unlike Jan, she never had that same face crack. And because she held it together so well, her elimination episode felt even more frustrating, mostly because the judging of that challenge was all out of whack, which I talked about not too long ago in the makeover video that I did. Luckily for her though, the fans were still very much up in arms and they really banded behind her to give her that support, with them being super mad at production for overlooking her. It's not super fun to watch this happen unfold week to week, and I won't call what happened on the show like a win for them, but they did get a really big organic fan base from this who are like diehard supporters, which was really great to see. They were both brought back for All-Stars, and in some ways the same shenanigans kept happening to them. Jan finally got her musical win, which I think was the bone that she needed, but at the same time they were giving her a lot of confused judging, saying that she was hamming it up and not being herself, while at the same time other episodes praising her for hamming it up and being this theater kid character. And they wanted another face crack moment so bad, with Alexis Mateo pulling out the second lipstick. As for Denali, she did good on her short time, but she lost the See You Again lip sync, and a lot of people were really upset about that. She also didn't make it to the merge because other people gave their points to Cynthia instead. That's not on production, so I wouldn't count that as rage bait, but for a lot of people it was still very upsetting. It's ultimately frustrating because you can see the talents of these queens shine through even if they are being overlooked. It's almost the underdog psychology where you see someone not really getting the time of day, so you want to support them even more. I've been talking about production a lot recently, so I hope they don't whack me because I still respect every decision that they have to make because it's not easy. I completely understand that all publicity is good publicity, and the choices that they make are getting us to talk even if we aren't really happy with it. Rage bait works so well because it bands people together to all collectively ask, am I crazy or are y'all seeing this too? And by people banding together, it connects people, it unites people, it gets them talking, and even if it's against the show, they're still going to watch it. These moments that I talked about, some of them are very monumental, but it's still like very few and far between the entire Drag Race show. These moments are in there, and there's probably a lot more examples too, but I think if the show really did this way too often to a point where people were truly upset, it would not be on the air anymore. Sometimes you can see through it, but at the same time, it's like entertaining to be upset. I'm not justifying it, but I understand why they do this because it keeps us talking. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks to my tier 2 patrons, and thank you to my tier 3 patrons who I will never rage bait, Frankie and Steely. And once again, thank you Heyday for sponsoring today's video. Download the app using either my QR code or link in the description, and then reply with your farm name under the pinned comment and you'll be entered in the giveaway giveaway that I'll draw on December 15th, 2025. A lot of you were wondering what was under my covers in last week's video. It was just pillows, nothing crazy. I'll see you soon with another video. Did that rage bait you? Okay, I'm done.